Crackheads and lovebombers.
Crackheads and lovebombers. Jeez.
I feel like both stackings are stuck in high school.
Why don't I believe you? You know, like, why does this feel so unsustainable and unreal and like kind of desperate, actually?
Yeah. It's a colorful mist that's supposed to be mysterious, but sort of like I don't really want to go into the mist. And then when I do, I'm just like standing in mist. If that makes sense.
The big hormone Enneagram.
I'm John Lekovich, 415, sexual self-pres, 458 trifix.
I'm David Gray, self-pres sexual, 9 with 1 wing, 974 trifix.
What up, it's Emeka. I'm an 8-wing-7, sexual self-pres with 854 fixes.
Hi, I'm Nancy. I'm a 3-wing-4 self-pres social with 369 trifix.
Hi, I'm Alexandra. I'm a social self-preservation 9-wing-1, 963 trifix.
If you like or hate us, make sure you go like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and make sure you leave us a review.
Yeah, David dropped the ultimate moment in the last recording with
What was it?
With the aliens.
Oh, yeah.
Aliens created self-pres 9s and 6s.
Oh,
That was great. I was laughing my ass off
into
when I was editing that. I was like, that is just perfect. I'm going to end the episode with that. There was nothing else. There was no follow-up after that. It was like,
You just cut it off.
Bro, credits.
Yeah, we were just like, David was like, yeah, this is why
This
there's
is
so
a new
many
thing I'm
6s
into.
and 9s. And we were like, yeah, and that's it.
It's a
Perfect
fact.
ending
It's
to an
done.
episode. I was like, yes, we
hard
think
fact.
you're all slave race, all of you.
all right.
All right. You want
So we're roasting.
Self-pres blinds.
Roasting the self-pres blinds today.
I'll say that I posted a meme of it's like a Ren and Stimpy, and they're like supposed to be doing some kind of like saw thing, and it's like actually really sexual or whatever.
I saw
And
that.
my meme was like these are two self-pres socials having sex, and like people in the chat thought it was funny, but then like I've had 6 people like it all day, and normally everything else gets like 100, 200, 300. So a lot
Probably
of
too sexual.
yeah, either didn't fly, nobody understood what I meant, or a lot of self-pres
it's
socials were
gross.
like, this is not funny.
There was
It's also it's gross. It's disgusting.
That's probably what it was.
That's what it's all about.
There was a Curb Your Enthusiasm meme where what's his face was making out with some woman, and there was a drink on this wooden table, and I suppose it's this nice really wood, and he stopped her and he's like, is that your glass on this nice wood? And she's like, yeah, it's no big deal. And he's like, are you the kind of person that would leave and left like a little mark? And he's like, I started wiping it, and they're about to hook up, but it's like, you ruined my wood. I was like, that's self-pres social right there. We're still
All right.
roasting self-pres social.
Yeah. It's not going to end.
It's not going to end. The slave race.
Slave. See, we need to do the deep dive into self-pres.
We need a whole-
6 and 9s.
We did a whole
That
That
episode
would be
on that.
funny.
Do a seminar.
It had to come from you,
Yeah,
David,
yeah.
'cause if we said that shit, they'd be in the streets rioting.
Yeah, it has to be delivered by a 9.
Yes.
In that sweet, diplomatic way.
So true.
Aliens arrived and genetically modified the human race to create attachment types who are slaves.
Yes.
God.
That's why there's so many of them.
That's why there's so many of them.
Oh man, that's such a great insight, David.
Thank you. That's what I'm here for.
Mind blown. The hexad types are the weirdos here. It is all attachment. Like, it is your responsibility to figure, if you're trying to figure out people, it's because you don't understand attachment. And to understand people is to understand attachment. We're the ones you have to get with the program.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of feel like some of why I got really interested in Enneagram, there's like a couple of competing reasons, but one of them was it explained me.
Mm-hmm.
because I was like, there's something I'm not. There's a gel here that I'm not participating in. You know, there's some kind of squishy fluid here shared by everybody that
Not
somehow
tapping into.
That you don't want to touch you.
I don't want to touch. I don't want it to touch me, but I'm also like, but this seems to be the only way to like. Yeah, I gotta understand what the fuck's going on here, and
Right.
like why I have very strong needs, but they don't seem to match with anything out here, and what's going on.
Yeah. Attachment all the way down.
Yeah.
Every year it feels like I'm just starting over understanding attachment types. Well, it's not as mind-blowing as 2021 was, because that year was like,
Yeah.
wait, what? What?
Yeah.
What?
Totally.
But that makes sense that it's got that sort of almost like elemental quality to it, that it that you, it's like just when you think you're grasping it, it morphs to something else, and so so you can't actually grab it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're roasting sexual social and social sexual. What do we want to start with?
Well, they're both starting with the babies. We're focusing on the babies of the Enneagram today.
Yeah.
And
Self-pros
why
blinds
do
as
you-
babies.
Why do you
Don't know
call
how to
them
feed
babies?
themselves.
Give us
They
some
mooch off of everyone
some
else.
context here. Help us understand, why do you call them babies?
Yeah.
Why
Man,
are you being so insulting?
I'm really liking my eyebrows. I might need to get some fake eyebrows. This has really upgraded my sexual market value, as they say.
You might need to start wearing
For the
eyebrow makeup.
for the listeners, for whatever reason, today we've decided to all play with the background effects and the video effects
Studio
on
effects.
our Zoom call.
Yeah.
So Emika's playing with some eyebrows. I've got some weird jewelry on. David's in the dark as usual, and
David,
John's
what
too
happened
good
to
to mess
your,
with any of them.
I
happened
literally
to your
don't have
shit?
any.
I just, I'm a serious person. I couldn't keep going with all
That's
the
exactly
jokes.
what it is.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it
All
is.
the foolish backgrounds.
Your 7 fix outdid yourself.
Yeah.
Outdid you.
Mhm.
Sometimes I wonder, well, to get off the retyping carousel would require you to have to do something about your type. Like, it seems like the Enneagram
Mhm.
wouldn't be interesting for a lot of people if they just stuck to a type and did something with it. You
Yeah.
know, so it feels like
Yeah.
every couple years they, oh, I might be this type over here, and that becomes like a way to make the Enneagram new again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it, even if you are typing yourself correctly, at some point you stop, like you make it past the initial learning stage, and then you have to actually do stuff, you know what I mean? Like there's always going to be, even if you're typed correctly, there's always going to be like a discovery phase where you're like, oh, this is what 9 does. Fuck, this is what 9 does too. 9 is this. This is what 9 means. This is how 9 interacts with other things. But eventually you're like, okay, 9. Now what are you going to do about your lines to 6 and 3?
Right.
9's too, but I think 6 is a little more acutely that I've dealt with. I have so much question around their purpose and what they do, and like who am I supposed to be? And I think that identifying as a hexad type gives that, and it's like, yeah. Anyway, that's my
for
sense
sure.
of her.
This reminds me of this pattern I noticed with a lot of these attachment types who over-identify with their hexad fix, because that's the seemingly individuated aspect of their personality. That's the part that they really want to identify with, and they really see in themselves, because 3 and 6 and 9 kind of slip through the fingers, even when you're trying to like define and understand it. But that's definitely something I keep seeing. People attachment types identifying with their hexad wink or fixes, like David over here.
Every
Totally
episode
like David.
has to mention it every
David's-
goddamn time.
I'm triple frustration, actually.
Just special self-pres sexual 974. Just not really an attachment type.
Yeah.
See, David is partially created by the aliens.
Right, he's
Self-pres
not-
9.
So true.
but in the soup matrix that they were making him in, he kind of got out
above
a little
them.
bit. Yeah.
Somehow. He's
Well-
like a slave trader, if that's possible.
there's
Yeah,
that.
he's the Moses of
Yes.
Yeah.
nines.
No, I
and
mean,
sixes.
That's it. That's totally
the
it.
tampering they did with me. I mean, I still got some of the slave stuff, but they also gave me like magical powers and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To be above it
I think-
and to be
yeah.
able to tell the
Yeah.
others this
And to
is
be
what
able
they
to-
did.
yeah.
Yeah,
To be a messenger unto the people.
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, he's the David's
The
the
Moses.
honey pot,
Yeah, the honeypot.
gathering all the sixes and the nines and
Special-
trapping them.
I mean, so many things you could say about me that are amazing. I mean, just-
So many things. We could do a whole episode. In fact,
Yeah.
we did do a whole episode about David.
Yeah.
'cause-
Yeah, we haven't done a whole episode about anybody else.
Yeah. Huh, I wonder how that happened.
Curious case of David Gray.
Curious Grace of David
How
Gray.
does that happen? I didn't. I was just there. I mean, I don't know how it happened. It just came to me. It just was part of the flow.
I watched
Oh, man.
Alexandra guest starred on The Prince's Court,
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was
I
really
need to
good.
see
It
it.
was like they looked at some drag
Drag
race
race.
show, and there was this like 9 facing off with like a 7,
Mm.
and there was like they had to do like a play or something, and there were different like characters, and the 9 like obviously wanted to be like, I don't know, it was like a policeman or something like this, and then there was something like a detective also, and the 9 was not stating their preference, and then the 7 was like, well, I want to be the policeman. and then the 9 like got like really like offended and like reactive about this because stating your location is
yeah.
like
Right.
offensive. It's like taking options away totally.
Mhm.
Well, and it's
And-
also not having a mutual agreement that we're all adapting all the time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then the 7 felt like the 9 was trying to manipulate their preferences and whatever. And it was like a really, but Joseph and Alexander did a really good job. And Alexander was like really able to demonstrate like, kind of we're talking about like, oh, David was just there, but he's also the focus. It was like this kind of thing where it's like little old me, but like I'm also like the biggest one in the
Yeah.
room.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm just.
Yeah, there was a part in the clip where we were discussing that the 9 basically had this like little old me, like I'm not doing anything, I'm not being passive aggressive, I'm just gonna be the bigger person again, not realizing how much space she was like taking up and how she was like making everybody uncomfortable and how she's like not being passive aggressive, but everyone has like their hands over their mouth because she's absolutely dripping in attitude.
Mhm.
It was good.
So when are we
Good.
doing the part 2 of the amazing case of David Gray?
We don't need a part 2.
Ah,
Oh,
we need an update.
We need an update.
yeah, update.
Yeah.
I think you let the world know of all your childhood traumas and sexual
It's true.
sexual obsessions.
Obsessions and how I was.
What year was that?
That was
That
the
would
year
be-
of the soul intercourse. So that was 2021, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
All right, big hormone. We've been doing, the usual updates, but I've been talking to these friends of mine about this Egypt trip, and it seems like it's probably going to happen in January 2024. Cheaper than I thought. It's about 2 weeks. It's going to be really good, and it's going to be a real deep dive into the links between inner work, the Enneagram, and using Egypt as a way to understand what spirituality is, what inner life is, and to really see it, the fruits of a spiritual orientation manifest in like beautiful architecture and art and
Right.
it's a way of taking something from a hobby into like a real sense of, oh, this shit's fucking real, and to be able to read it with your own eyes instead of just having it exist as an intellectual thing. Like, I think when people really understand Egypt lives in your heart and not just in your mind as this artwork that orients you to what's real. So I'm really excited about it. I've got a 9 and a 7 I'm paired with that are really good at taking care of stuff, and I'm really excited about them. More info when we get more info, but it'll be great. And then
what do people do if they're interested? What they just reach out to you?
Well, yeah, right now it's going to be egyptretreats.com is my friend's site, Diana and Lena, and we don't have any official information yet because we're still figuring stuff out, but you can scope them out. They're they really provide a really beautiful holding environment. We're going to have a boat at some point if all this goes according to plan.
And they're part of the SPSO slave class that the aliens designed, the SPSO.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
They designed the whole, it's kind of a service that they provide for all of us as slaves.
Exactly. The same aliens that built those pyramids.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, created these.
Genetically modified them to make
David's
this happen.
slave race.
Yes. It only makes
David
sense.
said it, not us.
Am I exempt from this slave thing since I'm not self-prosocial?
Yeah, you are. But
Okay,
I mean,
good.
the true hardcore part of the slave race is, of course, the Bermuda SPSOs.
You're part slave.
I mean, it's
Okay.
yeah,
I'm part slave.
but you are a completely different genetic monster because of social self-pres.
yes.
So
All right. Well,
fear
good.
not.
Monster, yes.
Yes.
As long as
Love
I'm
monster.
special
Exempt. Yeah.
Emphasis on monster.
and powerful.
Yes. A beast. A
Yes.
dragoon.
Love monster, yeah.
And then, Josh and I, we are working on intro course at the Enneagram School. We've had that one course we did. And then please buy my book. And if you bought it, please rate it wherever you bought it from. And if you want to support me, and I'm trying to get my book into stores. And so if you go harass your local bookstore person and humiliate yourself, you can ask them to order my book through Ingram, and I think that can work for the rare, willing bookshop owner. So that's what I got. Alexandra, you should promote what you just worked on.
Yes. Hi. Hello. It is I, your 9 ruler.
Who takes
What am I
up no
doing?
space but is the ruler of everything.
That's right. I'm a little old 9, but also supreme ruler of the universe. Okay. I am just doing my thing on my website, Saturn Ruled 9, and as of we're recording this on Sunday, so by the time this comes out, I will have some videos out on The Bachelor that is coming up on my YouTube channel. I'm not calling it a YouTube channel, even though that's what it is. You can find it on my website, though. So go to my website, Saturn Ruled 9. My astrology readings are still available. And yeah, I'm excited to be doing this. More chatty social spaces for everyone.
What do you do, though? These videos are great. So what do you do on the video, though?
On this first video that's coming out, I'm looking at the contestants that are going to be competing on this season. And basically, I'm just looking at their pictures and reading their bios and typing them based on the information that they provided.
Yeah, she's doing quick visual types, and it's very funny.
Nice.
Yes, I'm very funny. You should watch them. That's it. Bye.
All right. DAA, Dark Arts Academy. We're aiming to be dangerously perceptive and skilled at seeing the types clearly. We're making videos every week and answering a lot of questions in an attempt to become more experientially fluent and sort of get an intuition about what these types are. And due to some requests, we've been focusing recently on the sexual instinct. We just did a class on the sexual instinct for the gut types, and we're going to move through all the centers. We also did a class looking at the differences between the way that social self-pres and self-pres social access their sexual blind spot, which was kind of an interesting new territory for us.
Yeah, and we went into sort of the high side of how to do that, and then sort of how it manifests sort of incidentally, accidentally in shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was a cool class. And we have a Discord going. People have been really enjoying that, just having conversations about typings and every aspect of the Enneagram. And if you can find out in our members area at Enneagrammer.com. You can also find discounts on our typing services if you haven't been typed yet by us. And what else? I think that's it. I guess I should plug people sending money to the podcast.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Shit.
Let me do it.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, you just think of whatever your Venmo is, whatever. But
oh, sure, yeah, okay.
So, all right, Emeka puts a lot of fucking work into these podcasts, and he does it all for free, and we don't make any money on this. And however, it costs like $15 a month to host a podcast, and it takes Emeka all day to do this. So, we're trying to raise a little money if you just enjoy the content here. To pay Emeka back. He keeps this whole thing going. He's our engineer and producer and all those kind of, and we're just the piece of shits that show up. So
talent.
We're the talent, but Emeka's also talent. Yeah. And so send Emeka some money. So Emeka, what's your Venmo?
Venmo is EMEKV, and or you can also PayPal at emeka.okorafor@gmail.com.
And some of this also goes into just stuff like equipment and blah blah blah. But it'd just be a nice thing to do. So yeah, please do that.
Coolio. Cool. All right, what's up? Is there anything else, David? Your Trifix booklet.
Trifix booklet. It's still there. It's still amazing. It still has the powerful energy that it's always had. And you may want to return to it and buy it a second time. Just to show your appreciation for me and the magic that I do.
There's a magical thing that happens when people buy
That's it.
the booklet. So they need to experience that magicness
over and over, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only $2.
You've got the 974 Trifix, which is about magic, but then David is self-pres, which is money.
Yeah.
And so it's like a transference of the pentacle, tarot.
You have to exchange money to get the magic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every time you get the magic.
It's a beautiful electricity that will take over your body and mind and ignite your sexuality, your mind, just all parts of you.
You're trying to work on your sexual blind spot? Buy David's Trifix book.
It's that simple,
the key,
actually.
Yeah. Alexandra, why did you call self-pres blinds babies?
All right. So today we are going to roast the self-pres blind stacking. So we're going to roast the babies of the Enneagram.
Crackheads and lovebombers.
Crackheads and lovebombers. Jeez.
Coming out swinging today.
We can do an overview on how annoying self-pres blinds are. Yeah, we frequently call them babies because, social needs another object. It needs a different object. Sexual also needs an external, something outside of itself.
The object
it needs
is other people.
Yes.
Right.
For both social and sexual. So then when you combine sexual social or social sexual and leave out self-pres, these people are overly dependent on the attention of other people. Mm-hmm. They come off clingy. They come off, a little overwhelming to me. And then without self-pres, this is making it into a caricature, but they really struggle to take care of themselves. They struggle to keep their physical bodies healthy. They struggle to regulate on their own without the aid of, their resources, which is another person. And
part of self-regulation for somebody who's self-pres blind is always going to be somehow tied up in other people. And so I know some self-pres blinds that are actually overeaters, but they go to restaurants all the time. It's very much about being seen and bringing other people with them and talking to the wait staff and conversation. And then whatever kind of prestige might come with fine dining or whatever it comes with. And so there's this sense of a lot of difficulty in staying in my own atmosphere and my own. People with self-pres have this sense of just kind of staying with themselves in a
Right.
certain way,
Right.
and often like being able to entertain yourself,
Right.
having things you're interested in that has nothing to do with looping other people in at all. But when you're
Yeah.
self-pres blind, there's a lot of bells and whistles on the personality that are all kind of like, I mean, the self-pres blind person might find them interesting themselves, but they're all somehow looping other people in directly or indirectly. It's everything's sort of referential, and it's to keep other people's attention engaged in some way, to keep the interest going. But you get a sense that sometimes my experience of self-pres blinds is I'm like, if you were just like in a room alone, would you enjoy this thing that you do without the attention that you get from it? Like, would you just have pleasure in this activity?
Yes.
And it feels like it's not always going to sustain them very much without the attention and feedback they get from whatever they're putting their attention and energy into.
Yeah. Something else to say about people with self-pres is that their ability to separate and like entertain themselves and just like be in themselves is not just inability, but it's an election to do so. Does that make sense? Like, it's people with self-pres are electing to separate and be inside of themselves, not just because it's like a fun thing to do, but because they recognize the need to experience yourself outside of your engagements with other people or other things.
I mean, you can put it in. I think there's different levels or layers or whatever. There's the choice piece that you're talking about, but then there's also just it's what you're doing. It's just what's happening if you've got self-pres. There's that. Right.
Yeah, it feels like the constant need of other people as objects to self-regulate. And I think somebody had asked a question like, if people who are self-pres blind, how can it be possible that how can they survive if they're self-pres blind? And you could sort of ask the same question for all the blind spots. But it seems like this one's much worse because everyone has to fucking self-pres. But it's kind of missing the point of, it's not just can you pay your bills and take care of yourself and this kind of shit. On a very basic level, just even the idea of boundaries, things having boundaries, yourself having boundaries, being able to self-regulate yourself emotionally, like on some level understanding that I have to come back to myself. Now, if you've never been in a relationship with the self-pres blind, you might not understand what the extent of someone not having that sort of like self-pres sense where you are now responsible to self-regulate the self-pres blind. And that's, to me, is what really gets at what self-pres blindness is. Not necessarily, because I mean, I'm not that great with some of my self-pres, habits or whatever, but it's this kind of sense of like, I need to like come back to myself that is missing.
Yeah, it's like, well said. It's like a self-pres blind person is always trying to loop somebody else in on the project of taking care of their own self-pres. There's always a little bit of outsourcing. And part of it is, that as infants, our self-pres was entirely external. And so as an adult, there's like an active but unconscious resistance to integrating that self-pres because it means I'm going to be less open to mother's regulation on a psychological level. And, to the person who is self-pres blind as an adult, their experience is that self-pres is boring, it's drudgery, it's limiting, it's all these different things, it's deadening. But what it's actually kind of deadening in actuality is that open, enticing baby energy that's trying to coyly attract the attention of its caregivers.
Yeah,
right.
It's worth saying that self-pres is boring. Nobody's fucking excited about paying their fucking bills. Like it is kind of like, this is the kind of thing you need to do to keep an organism alive. There's nothing inherently exciting about that. But what is exciting about self-pres is this sort of like getting into yourself, really experiencing yourself, being able to ground yourself. Like that's the sort of and all the different ways that people who have self-pres do that. You can ground yourself in a show, but you're spending time alone getting into your own experience of yourself. That is where you self-pres blinds kind of like they're bored and they're grossed out by that, which is crazy if you have self-pres.
And the other thing too is plenty of self-pres blinds are attracted to people that are self-pres dominant or self-pres second because there's a sense, I don't know, it's an energy emanating from somebody that's got self-pres, that has a grounding, that feels like actual substance or materiality, or just some kind of planting in the self.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And another thing too is that self-pres blind people can have trouble making choices, especially long-term choices, because self-pres gives you a frame of reference of what you want, what you desire, what you need, and what your limitations are. You know, like
Limitations.
I can anticipate, like, all right, if Alexander and I go out tonight, I can guess that I probably have like 2 or 3 good hours of dancing and going crazy, and I can drink maybe this much, and I can do this much interaction, and then I gotta crash. And I can like plan my fucking night based on that. You know, and then I discover, oh, maybe actually more energy, whatever. But I can, but and the same thing with the long term, where like I can, you know, like writing my book. I was like, all right, I have to mark out 2 to 3 hours a day to just write, no matter if I like just sit in front of my computer and write. And I could just do that consistently and build, because I knew what I wanted to move toward. And it kept my attention because I understood my capacities. Like, I can do this book, and I can do what I need to do to be ready for this book. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can do the study. I can put the time in to just sit. I can research. I can ask the questions. It's like a sense of your capacities, and a sense of building something is not just worthwhile, it's also pleasurable, and it also is you know, a confidence kind of confidence, not quite the right word, but it's you're honing your own sword, basically. You know? And so somebody who's self-pres blind doesn't mean that doesn't happen for them at all, but I've noticed that there can be kind of either a directionlessness, or like, and they change the course of what they're doing kind of haphazardly, or what they have gotten themselves into is maybe not a byproduct of their own will, but is almost like, oh, this got me to connect with these people, so I'm going to do this for now. Yeah. And then this opportunity comes up and do this for now. And so I've known self-pres blinds who were like very established in their field. They got there kind of by accident because somebody else told them, or was like it afforded them opportunities. And I get the sense of being around them that they're not even that interested in the thing that they're all into. You know?
Yeah.
It's about the connections that are happening. The electricity in the air is a real big piece of that whole thing. I mean, that's social and sexual, right? It's sexual's electricity and social's air. So it's just all about that pinging around. And if a subject or vocation or whatever, you know, froths that up in the mix, then that's the thing.
And then when it comes to, for me at least, my sense of reaching into that froth is like, all right, where's the molten magma center that I can stick my fingers in? And it's just like my fingers pass through it in a certain way. Yeah. Like, it's very it's frustrating.
I think of it as one of my analogies is cappuccino milk. You know, so it's this. Everybody loves that foam. Right, and you want to do stuff with it with your tongue and stick your fingers in there and do all these beautiful sensual things with it. But if you let that cappuccino milk foam sit and you came back 10 minutes later, it's just flat and dead, and there's nothing there. Yeah. It never was anything. Yeah,
it gives me sexual blue balls.
That's it.
Opposed to the social blue balls of so
you were going to say something, Alexander?
I was gonna go in a couple different directions, but the one that's coming up right now is like something that we talked about with the sexual blind episode, and we didn't say this explicitly, but you know, there was a sort of like dry, kind of clinical or mundane quality to the criticisms that we had on self-pres social and social self-pres. So there is, I think this will be a through line with all 3 of these episodes of like how the blind spot is actually, how do I say this? Like
it's like a
like
textural...
takes out. Not really. It's like more like how the blind spot like takes out the vitality of the stacking or something like that, or weakens the vitality of the stacking or something like that. Right. Because there's been this phenomenon that I've observed with self-pres blinds where I see that they're really identified with like their capacity to be affected by other people. Like they seem really
yeah.
identified with like, oh, they're just my best friend,
okay.
or like I'm obsessed with this person.
That's
I
right.
would live in a cardboard box with them because I'm just such a love person.
Yes.
You know, like
Yes.
I'm so attracted, having, I don't know, all this kind of crazy stuff. And there's always been I've always wondered why I was like, why don't I believe you? You know, like why does this feel so unsustainable and unreal and like kind of desperate actually.
Cappuccino
and I think it
froth,
comes from
it just turns to nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It comes from like this self-pres blind, not having at least my sort of like felt impression of self-pres blind is that it has an unsustained quality to it, which I guess is what you're saying with the cappuccino milk thing. But there's yeah, I guess that was it. I feel like there was more, but it'll come up later.
Yeah, well, I mean, to that point about like, oh, I'm so affected. It's sort of like because the self-pres blindness has left a certain kind of self-neglect, like a foundational neglect. It's almost like I then don't have a that like inner pillar from which to really connect and dig in and like lock in with another person. So then the one that they're so affected by, who is so whatever, it doesn't really feel like it has anything to do with that person that they're supposedly so connected to. It feels
That's
like
exactly what it is.
People like a lot of self-pres blinds. My experience is feeling very interchangeable to them. Like people are very
that's
interchangeable.
Exactly what I was.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I thought you were going for.
Yes, that's totally the feeling. Yeah, and I've
So
had
it's like, oh, I'm so affected, but then it's like, but now I'm affected next week by somebody else.
Yeah, like it feels like the affectedness is really just like attraction to availability because that's what they need to sustain themselves. Like it's not actually the physical being, you know, like or like physical is a little too literal, but like the substantial person or object. It's just like the idea that you're getting high off of. And I guess this is coming from also, I've been friends with social sexuals in the past, like in college. I think I had a few, pretty sure there were social sexual friends that were like very active and like high off of me when I was around. But, you know, I'm a person with pretty low stamina when it comes to like maintaining something. Like I'm good with like strong connections that I don't have to maintain every day because I just don't have that kind of energy. And I noticed with social sexual friends, I couldn't develop that stamina with them because if I was out of sight, I was out of mind too.
Right. Yeah, I like the analogy that Joseph gave for social sexual of like, you know, like in high school where you're just giddy and excited where you've made a new best friend and you to think about how frivolous those connections can be where it's just you're just frothing at the mouth for how you know, sharing secrets. And I think of a similar thing happening with sexual social. Similar thing happening with sexual social in that there feels like there's an immaturity about the realities of grounding the chemistry and the attraction into something that can be sustainable. So it stays in an abstract space up in the air where love can solve everything. And it's very seductive in the sense that that's why I call it the lovebombers, because it's like you just get hit by this, oh my God, I've never been so into anyone before. And also comes with a lot of, you know, like the typical love story memes of, I'll go to the end of the earth for you. It's coming from like a sexual social space, like the mating dance romance side of the sexual instinct. Whereas sexual self-pres is more about the consummation. You know, how do we spend as much time with each other? There's more of a practical groundedness about that. And so I feel like both stackings are stuck in high school in a way. There's this frivolous kind of like getting high off of either the connection or getting high off of either the chemistry in a way that's very impractical and feels like you're saying, Alexandra, it feels interchangeable because the practicality grounds you in the other person. It doesn't feel grounded in the other person.
There's also something in self-pres about like, and we talked about this before, but like, you feel good in my body.
Yes.
Like so for social sexual, there's like, you know, can I like, all right, like Emeka, when you were chilling here, right? Like we just like, you know, we were like, all right, we need to have introvert time. You just like sat around and watched some shows and just chilled and just, you know, gave you some coconut water, and like then we came out and we were just like and we didn't do anything, you know.
Right.
It was just
We didn't
like
need to.
we're just being around.
Right.
And then like, you know, but then also in the sexual point of view, like big part of it is your body chemistry and your scent and all this kind of stuff like this. And so people who are self-pres blind kind of like don't have that discernment,
Right.
you know, or they ignore that discernment. And you know, and so then you've got this like sexual social attitude of romanticism that has like kind of lacks the animal craving part of sexual instinct in a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then social sexual, they're like, I will just often be shocked with who a social sexual will be around or give attention to or want to engage with. And I'm like, because I've got all this data about how like their vibration, so to speak, is like affecting my state.
Right.
And if their boundaries are contained, if they're closed, if they're open or whatever, and the self-pres blinds are like not seemingly picking up all this. It's like you can feel people's aura, and you can feel the garbage in somebody's aura, and all like the sadness or whatever. And it's like, you know, that's not getting picked up on by the self-pres blinds.
Yeah, my bias is that I just like never believe them. Like, when they talk about like, oh, we're best friends, or I'm just so in love with them, just like, sure, today, you know, we'll see. I don't know. I think part of it is just like a strong value for me is just dependability. Like that is a strong value that I require perceiving, I guess, in other people. And this is obviously super biased. But yeah, I struggle with locating that with self-pres blind of either stacking. And of course, there's like the not all self-pres blinds or whatever.
Sure.
If you are a dependable self-pres blind, then great. We're not talking about you. But yeah, that's the bias I have trouble overriding.
One of the most annoying things about self-pres blind to me is this inability to sort of like keep track of where the boundaries between things or where things are structurally, conversationally. So like we're just having a conversation. It feels like ADHD, even though they don't have ADHD, that they can't really keep track of their position. And so we'd have like discussions, and it's this slippery thing where you're trying to get somewhere and the self-pres blind just, their point slips away. They forget what their point is. And I've seen this even with someone, a hexaddy type, that they just, it's hard to have a conversation because there's not that sense of groundedness. And so they're kind of like slippery, it feels like. Trying to think. And so when it comes to working with someone who has self-pres blind, it can feel like there's no center. There's no awareness of what it takes to get from point A to point B. So it's like this exciting new idea that we should work on. Let's create course material for our high schools. And I'm like, so who's actually going to do that, Joseph? Because it's not going to be me. And you're certainly not going to be calling school teachers every week. And David's sure as hell not going to do it. So who the fuck is going to put together these packages? This is like, who's actually going to do the work?
Josh.
So, exactly.
Correct.
It can get really annoying because for someone who has like, you know, Joseph has 6 and 1, you would think he does have a lot of practicality. But every now and then there's this sort of 7-ish thing that happens where it's like, oh, let's just get high on this idea that's cool to think about. And I'm like, I mean, I've got enough fantasy bullshit. I'm not the most productive human being either, but compared to a social sexual, like, yo.
Anyway, I want to roast the individual stackings.
All right.
Yeah,
let's
we've
go.
covered a... You guys remember that? Actually, just this, it could be, I don't know if this is a segue or not, but John, do you remember that hobosexual meme that you made on self-pres blind?
Yeah.
What was that? Just like a hobosexual is someone that will
fall in love with you so that they can sleep in your bed or something because they don't
Sleep
have.
on
Oh
the
yeah,
couch
sleep on
or-
your couch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me
Boom.
find it.
Just wanted to remind everyone of that.
It's probably more social sexual than sexual social, I would think.
Kind of.
I don't
Maybe.
think
Yeah.
so. No, there are
One of the
definitely
things
sexual
with-
socials that use their resources for stability.
I know it's backwards on camera, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, who dates you with the sole interest of having a place to stay? Oh yeah, I actually remember this. That is, yeah, okay. I'm remembering when that came out because I remember there was a discussion on like, that's not what I do, and there had to be a whole discussion on like, well, that's how you're perceived.
Yeah.
Social sexual, one thing about it is, maybe we touched on it already, but it's got this quality of wanting the the shine and the glitz and the glamour of social height and hierarchy,
So
but
true,
without
yeah.
having done the stuff. It's like it's like, you know, Michael Jackson wearing a bunch of military insignia,
right, yeah,
and he's obviously never done anything military. He's never been through boot camp or anything.
Regalia.
And he would never. Yeah, that's where I got my thing, regalia, for social sexual. Yeah.
It's the badges, the
Yeah.
bling.
The shine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's that quality too. I think we talked about it years back when we were honing in on some of the stuff on the stackings, where like those rap videos,
Yes.
they're often social sexual, like the director or whatever, where you've got the people walking in slow motion and they've got the bling on. There's
Yeah.
something about that slow motion that feels like you're kind of in the air.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Mr. T. Mr. T, we
Yeah.
have typed as social sexual 8, and he's like the
That's so-
embodiment. He's like a meme of social sexual because his whole get up is just mountains of necklaces and rings, and like he's just a useless display of social stacking.
Another one is do an image search on Gaddafi,
Yeah.
former dictator of Libya. I mean, it's all regalia. It's all just all these bright colored robes and military insignias and just all manner of garb, and you know, associating himself with the kings of Africa and all this stuff, and it's all just like
He had
hollow bullshit.
He had Amazonian female bodyguards.
that's pretty cool though.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Little
Actually,
sexual touch there. Yeah.
that's pretty dope. Actually, that's something I can aspire to one day.
Yeah, that's some
Amazonian
Wakanda
female
shit.
bodyguards. some eight shit right there.
Sexual social gets into, just trying to find the roast here.
Well,
can
let's
get into
maybe focus on one at a time. Should we do
Okay.
that?
You
Social sexual.
Yeah, social
now?
sexual. So this is the type that wears too much bling. You've seen Joseph's leopard print shirts, zebra print shirts. I mean, I wear crazy shirts, so I can't talk shit. So.
Social sexual is also the one that's going to call you a bestie in like 5 seconds.
Yes.
They'll have like
Right.
they'll have like 30 seconds of conversation, and then suddenly you're invited to everything as long as you keep saying yes to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the thing about the bling and stuff like this, a lot of the sexual social flair looks kind of cheap though, because usually it is because they don't have like either a lot of money or they've like, you know, to like buy something of high quality. So it's very like, I don't know, like Shin, what is that?
Shein.
Shein, like that company, which it's like all really super cheap knockoff stuff, but it's all very like shiny and neon or silver or something like this. It's like but then it like is covered in lead and dissolves really fast.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing is like, yeah, it gives me the social sexual like flair vibe. Is like it's there's not a lot of it's just like a quick thing or something.
There is a thing with social sexual and fashion specifically, because it's kind of like, you know, it's like
Frivolous display.
Frivolous display, and it's like decorating people. You know what I mean? It's like, here's the decorations, and it also is social signaling, because you're signaling which kind of person you are by what the clothes you're wearing and stuff like that. I think it's pretty. We talked about it like in the early days in the Facebook group, that there's kind of like a whole industry to me of social sexuals dressing self-pres socials. And then they're the ones that start these little trends, just
Yeah,
stupid
trends
stuff.
feels very social
Trends,
sexual to me.
right? I mean, just like little stuff, like remember those fucking jeans that had like the sort of royal filigree on the back pockets and shit?
Yes.
You remember that whole thing? And when was that? The
Of course.
2000s or whatever it was. That's absolutely like social sexual filigree, and then all the SPSOs glom onto it, and they're all doing it. So that gets into the whole flow thing of the stackings. I think that's an easy connection there because they're in the same sin flow.
And to that point of fashion, I don't think it's just clothes. It feels to me that social sexual are the ones that are most likely to take on like ideological positions that are fashionable as sort of the ones that most likely cosplay. I mean, of course, you could say the social stackings are putting on something in some way. They're displaying a certain identity for people to connect to. But it feels like social sexual is way more frivolous about that shit. And this is, to me, the cosplaying identities stacking, because it's about what is going to hook people and what is going to provoke people. And so using the social instinct and injecting the provocation and the polarity of the sexual instinct, and you're going to try to find something that's trendy or juicy at this point in time. And so maybe it's the queer stuff, or maybe it's, I don't know, just like fashion. It's like putting on these ornaments.
Yeah. Part of the frivolity of it is also that it has the quality of, well, just like that kind of person couldn't wear enough jewelry. Like they're going to keep adding jewelry.
Yes.
So they're going to keep more bling. They're going to keep adding new social labels.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
so that is one very annoying thing to me about, because, social self-pres does feel more adult to a certain degree. There's a level of seriousness around framing the social identity, and it seems a little bit more static at one's position. Whereas social sexual can do this. It does feel like a high school kind of whatever. You know how in high school you just kind of follow the trends because you don't want to be left out. Just adding these social identities because you want to be on whatever is hot at that point in time. Frivolous social display. That not just fashion, but just happening with actually important stuff. That shit drives me crazy.
Yeah, a comparison I like to make is like, I don't know, I guess like the different kinds of activism between social self-pres and social sexual. Social self-pres is like MLK going out and like organizing and, all this kind of stuff. And then there's like the social sexual activists that are like, there's some rapper, I can't remember. Isn't Tupac social sexual?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so there's like, it is still activism, but it is the collection of the social like trend, I guess. Just like whatever the social atmosphere. Let's make it cool.
Right.
Cool
yeah,
kids.
cool.
That's one of our phrases for social
cool.
sexual.
Yeah.
It's like wanting to be part of the in crowd or something.
And there's a little bit of a overlap between like self-pres social seeping into social sexual with remember that time when we had people upset at us that we had set ourselves up as the cool kids or something, and there was a bunch of self-pres socials, and I was like,
oh, okay, yeah.
But yeah, wanting to be cool is a thing for social sexual.
Social sexual also feels too fast. I know that there's like an overlap with 7, but sometimes with the bonding, with my self-pres middle, I'm just like, bitch, stop.
Right.
Stop. Don't touch me. Let's sit across from each other at this table and we'll have a conversation and we won't touch each other. But there's like this, like, let me get into your skin right away. Let's hold hands and be best friends and braid each other's hair. Don't touch my hair. Just get away from me.
But that's what I mean, though, is that they're doing that, but it's not actual bonding. It's not actual getting in. It's just it's just the activity and pretense of it.
Yeah,
totally. And that's how it's always felt, where I'm just like, there's no way that you were this enthusiastic this fast. You don't fucking know me yet.
That whole social sexual thing of, wait, you've invented this entire like deep connection that exists in social space that has nothing to do with our actual connection. There's no depth here. Like, you barely know anything about me. So this idea that this relationship is significant, that is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, one thing too, I don't know, how exactly to frame this up, but you don't necessarily always know at first, that it doesn't have that sort of solidity to it, because they actually are good at it. You know what I mean? Like they actually are really good at infusing the connection with this really vibrant electricity that feels like, wow, I am actually kind of buying this right now.
Right.
You know what I
right.
mean?
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
All right. So
Damn social sexuals.
sexual socials.
Well, I'll say that I sometimes get annoyed with, here are colors, or like swirling colors, and look how interesting it's supposed to be, and it's just like, it's fine, like.
You talking about sexual social?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like in collages and things like this, it's like this sort of like, it's like a mist. It's a colorful mist that's supposed to be mysterious, but sort of like, I don't really want to go into the mist, and then when I do, I'm just like standing in mist. If that makes any sense. Like
You just got sprayed.
yeah, like what was that? Euphoria? What was that show?
Oh yes. Yeah.
I didn't. I saw parts of it because Alexander was watching it, but like what instinct stacking was that? I mean, that
Definitely
was
self-press blind. For
Yeah,
sure.
it feels like
I
a
felt
self-press
social
blind.
sexual.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's still. It was just like the whole thing of that show just seemed to be people looking pretty and sad and meaningful in interesting lighting, but not actually having anything meaningful or compelling going on.
It just seemed like frivolous, sexy shit going on with no substance. But no, I think my experience of sexual social feels like being love bombed as a sexual type. I definitely get off on chemistry, and what sexual socials are able to do with social secondary is to sort of like, it feels wrong because it's like elevating the chemistry to impossible heights of, this love is supposed to fix everything, or not even supposed to fix everything, but it is everything.
It should fuel everything.
And it's not grounded in any sort of like, because for sexual self-pres, there's like this chemistry can be consummated. We can make a home in each other's bodies. Like there's a way that this chemistry can materialize itself in a real way. Whereas with sexual social, it becomes like this love, it is like a symbolic thing that we could admire. It's over us in some kind of way, and it doesn't seem to have any bearing on like the actual body to body experience of each other. So it feels like what happens when someone sells you a story of how much they love you, and then they disappear. They actually you got fucking catfished or something. Like they're not actually the love that you thought was so amazing is not actually there when it's time to actually fucking do the deed.
Right.
It's harder for me to roast sexual social, because to me the two best stackings are my stacking and sexual social.
Best in what way, David? Tell us how.
I see what you're doing. Shut the fuck up, David.
Why is sexual social your favorite?
No, we don't need to talk about why is sexual social his favorite. This is a roast.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I guess just to hear what he has to say.
Oh man. No, everything that I'm would say is completely abstract and has nothing to do with reality.
I mean, we already know that. That's how you talk,
Sexual
David.
social, though.
Weird.
Really? We're not used to that at all. We haven't come to
Also,
expect that way of speaking from David.
Well, funny enough, that is probably your compatibility with them, because that's my impression of sexual social to begin with. I'm just like, it's all abstract, and like, I don't fucking, it's not connected to reality at all.
Yeah. Right. Well, and my triple fantasy trifix, so it's just it all. There it is.
It's now coming together why you prefer that stacking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the ambiguity of whether this is gonna like be a real thing or not. It keeps the 7 fix going.
Yep.
So true.
You bring any
Very
self-present,
true.
and David runs the other way. He's like, no, this is too real.
Yeah.
You want to move
bet.
in with me? It's too real. Consummate? No, man.
No.
Well, consummation seems to like end the whole spiel
Fantasy.
for sexual social. I mean,
Yeah,
you know, it feels like the stacking most likely to be stuck in yearning, but as soon as it becomes something, it's like
Yes.
now I can't yearn anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's
You know, and like
Absolutely.
everybody can yearn, but I feel like that stacking is just like for yearning
Yeah.
and
No, it's-
imagining.
Yeah, that's an interesting insight because it has to stay in the yearning stage even when the relationship has moved into the stage where you have to build and actually follow through on
Mhm.
the love or the plans and the yearnings that you had set out with, and so that seems to be a
Totally.
thing that doesn't happen.
It's love in the air as opposed to love planted and rooted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. And
'Cause-
even like the utilization of love as like a tool that we need to sharpen and hone in on and
Yes.
master and
Right.
use it to craft the like physical relationship and existence that we're going to have feels like something that the self-pres stackings inherently understand.
Right.
Like, okay, you're here, I'm here. What are the tools laid out in front of us? What do I come with? What do you come with? Feels like sexual social. I don't have much interaction on an intimate level with sexual social at all, but
Mhm.
that's kind of my impression is that the idea of the utilization of any kind of practicality just isn't on the table at all.
Because like an aspect of relationship is creating these sort of rituals, things that
Yeah.
you come back to sort of reinforce your love and to create a foundation and a way for you guys to continue to meet each other. And it feels like self-pres blind or sexual social is like you want to get high on the chemistry, but if you don't ground it in some kind of ritual where you can continue to circle back around to each other, it eventually just, your actions don't correspond to the love that you claim to be having for this person. It just fizzles out. Like that's what these two stackings can end up doing. If you don't have self-pres, if you don't create rituals, if you don't create a foundation for a relationship, it's like trying to go back to the well to sort of draw on some kind of juice with and it just fizzles out eventually. Because if your actions don't correspond to the love that you claim to feel it's for someone, eventually they're not going to feel loved and they're going to move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is just like a dumb kind of roast, but sometimes with the sexual social thing, it's just like, oh, here I am. I'm right here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Marilyn
And
Monroe.
even on a social,
Right.
but even on a social level where we're trying to be like friends or something, it's just, yeah, here I am, and sometimes I just want to like clap in their face, be like, can you fucking stop that? Can we cut it out? Can we
Just
talk now?
I do have a lot to say about, because of my experience with sexual instinct is so important that it needs to be grounded in something. So it feels like, well, how can you love something if you're not willing to create a foundation where that love can grow?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. It's like this talking about the importance and romance of love, connection, attraction, but then like ephemerally moving away from it, you know,
Mhm.
as soon as
Shit
yeah.
gets serious.
yeah, exactly. So it's like, how much does this actually mean to you?
Yeah.
And so
Something
like,
else?
well, who would you be if you didn't have this
Mhm.
self-stroking like philosophy of love
Philosophy
without the
with no practice.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I guess you could say like someone could not love you and take those actions. You know what I'm saying? Like someone could
Yeah.
do the right things, but then maybe say not actually love you. But it feels like sexual social. You can say I love you or claim that we're in love, but take none of the actions that correspond to being a loving person.
Yeah, it's like all the ideas without any of the meat or execution.
Mm-hmm.
Sexual social can be difficult for me just in general because first of all, I'm a social middle hater, just being a social type, and then on
Yeah.
top of that, I'm sexual blind. So with the offering is like, what the fuck am I gonna do with this? You know, like I'm like, what? Stop doing that. What are you offering me? I don't need this.
But just look at me. Look.
Why? For what?
Just look.
Yeah, this is where I come out as a sexual blind with like a squirt gun. I'm like, fucking stop doing that with your eyes. Can you please just have a conversation? At least with like the self-pres middle, I'm like, okay, there's like a substantial thing I can work off of. But sometimes with sexual social, I'm like, what are you here for?
Right. You get more of the sexual bimbo with sexual social, where there's a level of certain seriousness of sexual self-pres where you're like, all right, they've got hooks, they've got usefulness, there's a groundedness here. You might fuck.
What more could you want?
You know, with sexual social, it's like, glittering sort of peacock thing.
And it's like like we're using like the feminine voices, but like the sexual social men that I've like seen and observed too, I'm like, what is your purpose here?
Fabio.
What are you doing?
I bet that guy is sexual social. You know who I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, the cover, romance
Fabio.
Cover novel guy.
Yeah, that's like
Who
to
doesn't
me
know
a
Fabio?
sexual social archetype, whether or not he is or not. That's the
Yeah, totally. Yeah, his vibe is that he expects wind to be blowing in his hair everywhere he goes.
He's got to be
Where it's
sexual
like,
social.
Dude, can you like make yourself breakfast? We don't need wind in your hair. Can you feed me?
All right. Well, I think I'm at my limit.
Yeah.
Let's see. Did
Self-pres
we
had to rear itself and limit us.
adequately roast these two stockings? I think so.
I think we did, especially as a combo deal, we did a pretty good job at the beginning.
Well, I guess we got the legends left. How can we roast? How can we roast the social blind?
That's gonna be
Fuck
rough
A
for
lot
me.
on Alexander's shoulders.
Good luck,
It's
Alexandra.
going to be really rough for me. Like,
Good luck.
how do I adequately roast sexual self-pres?
Mm-hmm.
And what about me?
Against two
you have only
hexen
praise.
types.
You have only praise for my stacking.
That's so
Right.
true, David.
Yeah.
Just
Your
praise.
stacking's not objectively the creepiest one at all.
Not at all. Not even slightly.
Objectively.
Just self-pres sexual is the one that just
Swamp creature.
self-pres sexual feels whatever. We'll save it for the episode, but it feels more
Yeah.
social blind to me than sexual
is.
self.
Hey,
I'll talk about this
that's-
on the podcast too,
that's
but
my
also.
jam.
Yeah, I'll talk about this on that episode too. But when I met the three of you, that first time I met the three of you, I was like,
Oh, yeah.
hey, I'm going to meet three social blinds.
Yeah.
And then I remember meeting Emeka first, and I was like, okay, this is not so weird. Like, and I met John, and I was like, there's a shock to my system here. But also, I was like, this isn't soup. This isn't weird. And then I remember meeting David, and I was like, oh, this is social blind.
Yeah.
Understand
There it
There was
is,
just
right
like, there was still just like with the self-pres that just doesn't need another object. I was like, whoa, this guy doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah. It really is a totally different energy.
He doesn't need to know me at all. And it was interesting as a 9-2, where I'm just like, okay, he's nice, he's easy to get along with,
Sure.
like
Right,
it was like there's still like a warm kind of like inviting quality, but I was like, he is just impartial to the existence of all of us as a first impression.
I think I've told the story before on that same trip. We were sitting at breakfast, and you and I were at the same table, Alexander, and I was, and everybody else was in the living room right near us, just right in the same room. But I was shouting various lewd, sexual comments and things. And just really bad stuff. Like somebody had just had a boob job, and I said, "Can we all line up and feel them or something like that?" But at the same time, even though you were, of course, horrifyingly disgusted with me, in those moments, I could tell you got me. You got that. You got that I wasn't ultimately. Like
an actual creep.
Like an actual creep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just that's just my preferred persona.
Yeah.
Creep.
Yeah. I remember that too. Yeah. It's like, sexual.
No,
as
and
a
you said
middle
something. It's like
instinct.
you said something that cued me like, oh, okay, you're getting me. It's like, well, it was partly too because you'd seen a quadrillion sexual innuendo things that I'd said in the chats, So it was like, man, this guy, what is this guy's deal? But then you saw me up close.
When I first met these guys, this is pretty. This is probably like 2016, 2017. And the instinct stuff was still pretty fresh, and so I don't think I was super solid on my stacking. I was like going back and forth with self-press sexual and sexual self-press.
Right.
And then meeting David, and there was another self-press sexual, and I was like, this energy is so fucking different. It's like the self-press sort of like self-containment. There was one point that we were partying, and both of these motherfuckers were like, we need to go back to the Airbnb. This is like at the peak of the partying. On the Saturday night, they were like, we need to go back to the Airbnb and chill and take a breather and then come back out. And I said, no, the fuck, we're not going back to, like, we're going back to the Airbnb, we're going to sleep. That's what's going to happen. You're going to wake up, it's going to be 6 a.m. and you're like, what the fuck happened? No, we're going to stay out because we've already been and it just the energy difference of like wanting to preserve and to just consume, and like that's such a night and day difference between self-press sexual and sexual self-press. I was like, oh, okay, there's no confusion there. I'm definitely not that.
God, that's so funny.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll take notes. I'll have to draw off of other self-press sexuals and sexual self-presses as well.
Yeah.
There's not many of us.
Roasty for you too.
There's
enough.
All right, well,
There's enough for me to be like.
I'm gonna spend my week giving Alexander material.
There you go.
All right, I'm gonna leave now.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
All right, bye guys.